Can you feel that? No, really. Can you feel that? There's something in the air in this arena. You know, I've spent a lot of my time this year sharing the excitement of our centennial with scouts and scouters all over. But in all honesty, I just can't find the words to describe the feeling in the air tonight. It's kind of like the feeling of the wind on your face. Can you imagine trying to describe that to someone who's never felt it before? You could say it's like the tickle of a feather or a deep sigh after a quick sprint. But these descriptions fall short because nothing compares to the actual feeling of the wind against your face. To truly understand the wind, you have to feel it. The spirit present here tonight is just like that. You can see it in the smiles all over this arena. You can hear it in the passionate roars of 15,000 arrowmen gathered in one place. That's right. I imagine that some of you can even smell it on those seated around you. But can you imagine trying to explain this feeling to your friends that aren't involved in the Order of the Arrow? There are no words. It's because the feeling that we have tonight in this room, the feeling in the air, it didn't start building here at this amazing conference. It didn't start when we all hit the road to head to Michigan. It didn't start long ago when we first began our NOAC medical forms. Whether you realize it or not, the spirit that we feel tonight started building 100 years ago, when a young camp director led a group of scouts through a ceremony and inducted them as the first brothers of the Order of the Arrow. That defining moment fuels our celebration this week. And I sincerely hope that while you're here, you're taking a moment to reflect on our proud history. Since our founding 100 years ago, brothers have done good turns that have rippled throughout scouting and the world around us. Innumerable first-year campers have learned lifelong lessons at summer camp, thanks to the service of devoted arrowmen. Hikers and cyclists throughout the country tread on beautiful trails built by the blood and sweat of arrowmen. Trust me, I would know because I've left both behind. And residents in communities ravaged by natural disasters have received hot meals and clean clothes from arrowmen who wear sashes and flaps, just like the ones you and I wear so proudly this evening. These are just a few examples of how, over the course of the last century, the Order of the Arrow has earned a reputation for being scouting's A-team for service. There's no doubt that we've got a lot to be proud of, and we should be proud of our history. But we must also recognize that it's just that, history. It is what we have done and what we have been. This week, we must plot the course of what we will do and what we will be. At this conference, we're entrusted with the responsibility of laying the foundation for our next century of service. And I think the weightiest part of that responsibility is to be the living embodiment of our founding principles. If we falter, if we leave without an understanding and appreciation of these principles, if we leave without a commitment to demonstrate each of them in our everyday lives, then the best days of the Order of the Arrow are behind us. The blockbuster first century of service will be followed by a second century that goes straight to DVD. Folks, that cannot happen. So where do we start? How do we ensure that our second century builds upon the legacy of our first? Search deep down, and I bet you'll find the answer. Let me help you out. Think back to your ordeal ceremony. Like a lot of you, I'm sure, I only sort of remember mine. The Texas heat that summer night was absolutely relentless. There was so much sweat in my eyes that I could barely keep them open. And while Mateo recited the legend, call me heinous, but I couldn't help but focus more on the smell of steak floating from the dining hall than the words that he shared. The only part of the ceremony that I remember vividly was when Alawatsukima shook my hand, pulled me close, and whispered to me the admonition of the Order of the Arrow. He told me, just as he told all of you, to love one another. Now, I know it might seem controversial to share a safeguarded tradition like this one in a public forum. You know, in fact, I think there might be some ceremonies advisors in the arena tonight that are short of breath. Good thing we've got ushers for you. Stick with me, though, folks. To make our second century mean something, we must start by living out this admonition in our everyday lives and demonstrate the principles of love, kindness, and understanding. All too often, we see our admonition as this big, lofty principle to which we should aspire, rather than as a virtue that we should practice every day. Let me remind you, we were selected as members of this order because our fellow scouts expected us to continue leading, expected us to continue living out the values of the Scout Oath and the Scout Law in our daily lives. So, why is it so difficult to do this? Well, let's be real here. Love is one four-letter word that makes most guys uncomfortable. That's because when we hear the word love, we're quick to mistake it for intimacy. The thing that we fail to consider is that love is simply the act of making others matter. The Order of the Arrow service to scouting, to our communities, and to the world around us in the last century are expressions of love. While we may never meet those that hike on the trails we build or whose lives are changed by the skills that we teach, our love is evident in the service that our movement has provided. Over the last 100 years, our order has done some monumental things. In fact, those accomplishments are immeasurable. Trust me, we've spent quite some time trying to quantify it. I even asked some of our order's most resourceful and tenured members just how many hours of service we've given over the course of the last 100 years. As I came to find out, nobody's quite sure. My inbox filled up with replies about reporting discrepancies and extrapolation estimates dating back to 1948, and slowly it dawned on me that our first century of service meant something, not because of how much we served, but rather for the feeling of love, the feeling of kindness, and the feeling of understanding that we demonstrated to others as we served. In the same way, the legacy of our next century won't be defined by the magnitude of the projects that we undertake, but rather by the feelings that we share with others through our service. And ladies and gentlemen, we don't need to venture out into the farthest reaches of the woods to lend a hand. Each day, opportunities to demonstrate unselfish service present themselves. A classmate who sits alone on the school bus, hoping that someone will strike up a conversation. A coworker who stays late at night, wishing they could make it to their daughter's soccer game instead of to an extra shift. A homeless teenager who stands at the street corner during your daily commute, looking for a warm meal, or even just a warm smile. With just a few words and a few minutes of our time, we can live out the admonition of the OA through everyday acts of service. Of course, the Order will continue to seek out service opportunities which make an impact on a grand scale, but nothing that we could plan or do could match the scale of 180,000 brothers united on one mission: to make others matter. The reality is that a small, singular act can sometimes have impacts far beyond what we see in the moment. Just think, all of us are bound together as brothers because a 23-year-old camp director had an idea to recognize outstanding scouts at camp one summer. And 2.1 million youth wear a uniform like this one in this country because a lone scout on a foggy night in London helped a businessman find his way. If each and every one of us recommits to fulfilling our obligation in our everyday life, who knows where our second century of service will take us? With that in mind, tonight, I stand before you with a dare. A dare because it will require you to step outside of the comfort zone of your normal routine. A dare because it will challenge you to question the conventions of a cynical society. Each day for the next 100 days, I will be seeking out at least one opportunity to love another by completing an unselfish act of service. And when I do that, I'm going to post about it on Twitter with hashtag #DareToDo. I'll be daring all of my friends, whether or not they're members of the Order of the Arrow or even scouting, to join in starting an extraordinary movement based on ordinary acts of service. And who better to start with than the 15,000 friends celebrating with me tonight? So here is my dare to you. I dare you to join me in recognizing our centennial and finding at least one way to serve your fellow man for the next 100 days. And each day, post online, share your selflessness with the world with hashtag #DareToDo. Why for 100 days? Well, partially to recognize the significance of our proud history. But there's a deeper reason too. It provides a sense of urgency and focus. With just 100 days to make a difference, there's no time to waste in getting started. When our founders established the OA in 1915, they relied on word of mouth to spread the message of Scouting's National Honor Society. In 100 years, their movement has captured the attention of millions. And with the technology that we have available to us today, we have the opportunity to capture the attention of hundreds of millions. We can and we must capitalize on this as we start our second century of service. Mindful of our obligation, the only question that remains is who's with me?
I'm with you, Alex.
And it looks like I'm not the only one.
Let us now open our ceremony in rededication to our order.
We are gathered here together in the midst of this great forest, gathered now to help and serve, cheerfully in all our actions, lovingly in our reflections. As fire curls winding upward, may our thoughts and actions rising fill us all with acts of goodness, and direct and rule and guide us in our work and thoughts this evening.
From the darkness, the glow of our council fire echoes with the laughter of 1,000 cheerful stories. This fire has always been at the center of our ceremonies, for as each candidate stands before it, their shadows are captured in the principles they encounter. Search your memories. Recall the moment you first felt the warmth from the fire of cheerfulness.
Awake, my friends. You now are starting on a long and toilsome journey.
From the darkness, from the forest, we have come with words of warning, bringing tokens of a struggle, an ordeal approaching swiftly.
All the natural world around you shows you clearly your reflection.
As the warrior draws the arrow most trustworthy from the quiver, you are drawn from many others.
You were sent to seek a vision of yourselves and of your purpose.
All the world may seem against you, and the path seem dark and lonely.
The spark is there, already glowing. Fan it now, forgetting hunger. Feed it till it is afire.
From the small flame first lit by E. Erner Goodman and Carol Adson on Treasure Island to every candidate who's been led by the 15 Blazes, this fire has been a bright, shining link in an unbroken chain of brotherhood that transcends age and gender, time and distance, trying times and happy days. It has trekked the peaks of New Mexico, sailed across the Florida Keys, portaged through the boundary waters, and has now found a new home in the forests of West Virginia. From our founding to the present day, this brotherhood has grown from the vision of 2 young men to hundreds of lodges across the land. We have witnessed its growth.
A hallmark of this honor society, service, has always been a firm value in our actions. Tonight, you have once again taken a daring step towards the revitalization of this ideal in your everyday lives. The spirit of the order has been a tremendous force, measured by the number of lives we've inspired to lead in service to others. We must always be mindful that every member in our order can contribute to its success, and that our legacy will be defined not by our past, but by what we dare to do next.
In this new century, our order will be judged by its actions, by how we apply the potential of each of our members,
by how well each member makes the most of his possibilities, and what we do with our discoveries,
by what we respect and how much each member demonstrates respect for his or herself,
by how well we understand others and how well we help others to understand us,
by how well we react to the unknown and adapt to change.
My friends, we have come far on our long and toilsome journey. You have shown your dedication by revealing the purpose of our order and the significance of the arrow to our members across the nation.
Tonight, we challenge you. Internalize what has been said, done, and felt this evening so that it may grow all the brighter in your hearts and consciences. Build upon the fire of cheerfulness all the days of your lives.
As we rededicate ourselves to the obligation we long ago accepted, listen now in thoughtful contemplation as we recall these admonitions that set us loose upon this lofty journey.
I, Nuteket, am the guardian of the circle, and I urge you, seek the fire at the center, kindle cheerfulness within you. Gather round your hearts the tinder, lay the oak and pine together. Kindle all that is within you with a warm and cheerful spirit.
I, Mateu, heard this message whispered on the western mountains. where the sun from eve to morning never sets, while all beneath me as I climbed and then stood listening, slept in darkness, slept in shadow. You need seek no rocky summit. These high places are within you.
It is not an easy journey. Sometimes even friends will mock you, tempt you to betray your promise, test your resolution often try to make you faithless. All the world may seem against you, and the path seem dark and lonely. All your strength will be required when you face the isolation which a leader often faces.
That you are here with us tonight, my brothers, is proof that your devotion to these high ideals is heartfelt and true.
He alone is worthy to wear the arrow, who will continue faithfully to serve his fellow man.
We will let the Spirit fill us with the gladness of a dawning, of a springtime, of beginning.
We who bear the obligation of the order of the arrow, now in silent meditation, mindful of our high tradition, ponder that which is our purpose, mark with silence, reverent.
Arrowmen, if you believe in this extraordinary movement, if you will dare to do alongside all of us for the next 100 days, then stand up and join us. Take a look around. Do you see that? Do you hear that? And above all else, do you feel that? It's the feeling that I pointed out when we started this evening. Like the wind, it can't be described with words. It's been 100 years in the making, and now it is our duty, our dare, to share this feeling of love with the world. Brothers, we are ready.
Firm bound in brotherhood, gather the clan that cheerful service brings to fellow man. Circle our council fire, well tightly every link that binds us in brotherhood, we're attending.